my name is Talia Jade and welcome to the first video in my video series. I'm so excited to be finally recording this project. I've been talking about it for so long. If you've been following me for a while, you would have heard me mention it. But it's even deeper and so much bigger than that. You have no idea how long I've been wanting to do this for. Let me just tell you a bit about what the series is gonna entail. It's basically encompassing much of my life journey so far, the experiences, how I've recognized the connections between spiritual experiences and real life stuff, how to help identify, help fix, kind of address everything. And for my family and friends, I'm sorry, but if you know me and you're a part of my life, nobody is safe because I'm gonna have to talk about so much stuff. But obviously I will not be giving any information out that identifies anyone, and I will be, I'm not bringing people in to this project to blame anyone or diss anyone or do anything like that. It's literally just my experience and sharing that, and I have to honor that. So you're all just gonna have to trust that I know what I'm doing and it's gonna be okay. So the main topics that I'll be discussing are a spiritual awakening. I get asked all the time, how do you have a spiritual awakening? What is a spiritual awakening? Well, you can't just go out and have a spiritual awakening. It doesn't work like that. A spiritual awakening happens to you, and you, the only way to overcome it is to go through it, and it's like a truly horrific experience which I'm going to explain, but that's a spiritual awakening. Okay, it just happens. And like I said, again, all this information out there, people will make it sound like it has to be this or it has to be that, or it's in this certain rules. There aren't any rules. It's different for everyone. Everyone's journey is going to be different. What some people might think sounds like their rock bottom, another person's could be completely different. And you might look at their reason and go, oh, that's not a good enough reason, I deal with that every day. But to that person, it's a different reason for everyone, and we can't invalidate what the experiences are. The journey and the point and the way that it will all unfold is going to be the same for everyone. The meaning, in other words, of why it's happening. The actual experience will be different. The meaning will be the same. So there are 4 stages to a spiritual awakening. I've shared some stuff from recommended readers that I like to follow before that shows the 4 stages, and it just went, as soon as I read that, I was like, oh my god, that sums it up so perfectly. So the first stage is the dark night of the soul. Then you have the hermit stage, the awareness, and then the rebirth. So they're the 4 stages, and I'm going to break down all of them. I'm going to talk about authentic, what spirituality is, what it should be, the red flags that we need to be aware of and avoid, a lot about my journey, my story. Labels are going to come up. Everything is going to come up at some point. There's just, I can't even introduce everything because I don't know how many topics. There's probably going to be more as I go, but that's the main concept. So I'll leave that as the introduction. I hope you guys join me because this is seriously the most important and biggest and greatest thing I've ever done in my life, and everything comes down to this point. Firstly, I just want to say how grateful I am for everyone's support and feedback, and everyone who's helped me to get to this point where I'm at now, and to take advantage of this opportunity, because what I'm doing is pretty out there by society standards. It's not everyone's cup of tea, so I really had to prepare myself to go out and do this, because I didn't know how a lot of people were going to react, and I was prepared to do that because I knew obviously that this is what I needed to do anyway, and it was really important to me, and I just had to accept the fact that I was maybe going to lose people in that process, because not everyone understands this stuff. But the people that I thought were going to be the least accepting have actually embraced it the most. So I really have to say just thank you to everyone, and how grateful I am and how much it means to me. And it doesn't go unnoticed, and you know, it's enabled me to literally be living out my wildest dreams since I was a child that I didn't even know I had, like, until going through this whole reflection process. And not a lot of people get to say that in entire lifetimes. Not a lot of people can say that they got to fulfill their dreams. So it is very special, and I am very grateful, and I am fully dedicated to this opportunity. I will not be wasting it by any means. So that's one thing I wanted to address. I also just wanted to put it out there that I'm not doing this video series to claim that I am like the know-all of everything spiritual and, you know, the greatest expert to the whole universe, because like I'm not. But I do know a lot about this stuff, and I do know a lot because I've experienced a lot for my age. So all of that has really taught me so much and helped me so much. And it wouldn't be right to have gone through all of this and then just gone, okay, yeah, cool, like that helped me, now I'm good, like forget about everyone else. The whole point of me going through this is to share it with as many people as possible, so that everyone can benefit from like what I had to go through and benefit from. I hope that makes sense. I learned so much and it helped me, and it's going to help a lot of other people when they realize they've probably experienced the same things that I have, but just didn't know what to call it, or didn't know how to address it, or didn't know how to like overcome it. So that's the intention for this project that I'm working on. Okay, now that that's done, let's get to the definition of the dark night of the soul phase. For the purposes of this video and my time constraints, I'm gonna keep this super basic, but there is tons of information out there. Like you could do a whole video series just on this, but I'm going to make it super beginner friendly and really break it down and just summarize it as best I can. So dark night of the soul is like a fancy term for a sudden and extremely impactful period of your life that is difficult. It introduces you to shadow sides and dark sides of yourself that you didn't even know were there. It's a really difficult process to go through, and I'm sure everyone can probably find a moment in their lives where they've gone through one or many of these things on repeat. Like this is my second spiritual awakening. Now that I'm looking back, I'm realizing I had one in 2018. I've just gone through another one. So you know, it looks, like I was saying in the introduction, it looks different for everybody. It can be anything. It can be maybe you faced adversity at some point in your life. Maybe you were a victim of a crime, or like a victim of a serious like world event. I don't know, like a bombing, a shooting, something super traumatic. It could be anything ranging from that to like a breakup, you know, even if you're in like high school, like a young love breakup. It could be the loss of a loved one. Maybe you're dealing with grief. It could be rejection, like asking someone, like as literally maybe as little as applying for a job and not getting the job you wanted. Anything can trigger a dark night of the soul in your life. And it will probably be the most lonely, the most misunderstood, the most depressive, the most hopeless times that you could possibly identify in your life. It could also be burnout from a job or a career, having to move your home. It can literally be anything. So the symptoms that you might feel or experience in whatever your dark night of the soul is will probably be similar across the board. So there's the mental health impact, the depression, the anxiety, panic attacks perhaps, the disconnect. If you're someone who is already quite in tune with your gut instinct, your intuition, maybe have some awareness of spirituality and you like that kind of thing, and all of a sudden you're consumed basically by this sadness and you're not able to receive messages, you're not able to even identify your gut instinct. Like I've said this before in a video, how dangerous that can be. If your gut instinct warns you against stuff that is dangerous, and if you can't even access that, it's really, really scary. So they're the kinds of symptoms that you will experience. Like we say about anything, yes, it's a dark and it's a hard and it's a difficult process, but the whole point of the process is to set you in the right direction to where you're supposed to go. Life is supposed to become so uncomfortable, so unbearable that you have no other choice but to find another way around, and that better way will open up all kinds of opportunities that you didn't even know existed. And that's the whole point. It's the universe's rejection, which is actually a redirection. Like that's something that will come up all the time. Rejection is protection from the universe, okay? Or rejection is redirection. So there is a very good reason why we sometimes have to experience these things, even though it's awful at the time and it seems unnecessary, and we can really get into that catastrophic victim mentality of like, why me and why is this happening, and just eventually, like, there's a point where it all just becomes too much and you will fall apart and almost have no choice but to kind of get to know the deepest parts of yourself to help build back up and find a new direction. So that's a very brief kind of introduction to what a dark night of the soul is. This is where we're going to get into the good stuff. This is my story. My dark night of the soul was 80% experiencing rejection of who I was as a person that I couldn't avoid, and 20% the breakdown of my nursing career that, on top of everything, over a prolonged period of several years, eventually had me like here. That was like officially the last sword in my back, and I was just, that was 100% deep dark night of the soul, burnt out, unable to function level of the dark night of the soul experience. Took a long time to get me there. And looking back now and being able to talk about it now, I can explain everything and I can understand everything and I can learn the lessons. So yes, it took a long time, but also I guess that's a testament to my strength as a person, where other people, because a lot of people did say to me, like, I wouldn't be able to do what you're doing, or I couldn't even do that, like, how are you still carrying on for so long? I was like, I don't know. It didn't break me. It took years and years, and then it took more on top of that until I got to this point where I needed to be forced to see the alternate path that the universe was trying to show me in this spiritual awakening. So whatever you think you can handle or can't handle, times that by like 10 and that's actually your strength. It's far more than you think. So let's break it down. Let's go back to the rejection that I'm talking about. So I've mentioned the spiritual awakening I had in 2018, and this was where I really started to go, that's who I am, and come out in a different way to how people knew me, and that was mainly my sexuality. It wasn't new, it didn't just drop out of thin air, it was always there. I just only just unlocked it. So, you know, that whole process, there was nothing wrong with that whole process. I actually had a lot of support. It was fine. You know, a couple years down the track, fast forward through family members and chosen family and people in my life, I then became introduced to other family groups that were not fine. Let's just call it what it is. We're not good with that idea of a person, you know, having that kind of identity. So I'd lived my whole life being quite worldly. So when I say worldly, like, I traveled a lot since I was like 15 or 16. I've been to at least 10 overseas countries in my like teenage to early adulthood years, probably more than that, but at least 10. So I'd had a lot of jobs, a lot of states, even traveling around the country where I live. I'd experienced a lot, I'd met a lot of people, and I had understandings of how people lived and worked in other countries. So I had a lot of awareness in that sense of the world and the big picture. And I genuinely believed that this kind of discrimination just didn't happen in these countries, especially mine, because I'd never met anybody that didn't like just understand that that's the reality we live in. We all lived in the same reality. I'd never come across anyone who was like, no, that's not okay. I genuinely was like, that will never happen. Never say never, because the universe fucking showed me, okay? I genuinely believe that, and next minute I had 2 huge family groups of the most extreme discriminatory like energy you could possibly have towards someone like me, right there in my local environment. So never say never, because the universe was like, oh, you don't think there's no discrimination? Here you go. Try this out for size. And let's just say this is why we're here, so this is a whole experience. But, you know, I get the lesson now. I will not make that mistake again. And so, yeah, this was the introduction to that. So, yeah, I could have, you know, it's very easy to just say, oh, I just wouldn't deal with someone like that, or whatever, leave them to their own devices, which is good. Okay, good boundaries, that's great. But I was connected to these groups through mutual family members, and unless I cut those people out, you know, they came packaged deals. I couldn't take one without the other. So I wasn't prepared to cut those people out, and the other groups weren't prepared to sever their ties with the person either. So whether any of us liked it or not, we all were connected, and had to just coexist. It wasn't coexisting, it was fighting. Co-clashing, let's call it that, co-clashing, right? So these people had rejected me, not something about me, not like, oh yeah, I saw her here and she was doing this, and like, I didn't like that behavior, or yeah, I spoke to them and they have different views, and there's like nothing like that. Because these people didn't know me, we'd never met. They maybe knew my name, okay? They refused to, one, acknowledge that I even existed, and two, spend any time getting to know me as a person and making up their own thoughts. It was an automatic rejection of me as a human. So there's rejection and there's criticism, like asking someone out on a date and they're like, no, sorry, I'm not interested. That makes sense. That I can work with. Okay, yep, that's fine. You're well within your rights to, you don't have to like me or be attracted or whatever. Like, that is a level of rejection that, okay, it's not right, next. Like, you move on. This rejection was, in my mind, unacceptable, because I was like, you can't just pretend that I don't exist. We are all on this planet. We all came here the same way. We're all going to leave here the same way. I have rights as a human, as do you. Like, why should you get your rights and I shouldn't get mine? So I was not prepared to let this happen to me without consequence. Obviously, we can't always take matters into our own hands and balance the scales of justice ourselves. That happens universally. But there were things I could do, and I tried all of them eventually. Well, first of all, it was feeling the effects of the rejection, because that's hurtful, it's unfair, it's all of that. And then getting to the point where I was like, no, we need to talk about this. This is not okay. I need an explanation. At the minimum, I need an explanation of how these people can behave like this to another human being and sleep at night. So I'm asking the questions. I'm asking for the explanations behind the, behaviors and everything that's going on. And I'm just going to talk about the three main ones to address. They're kind of similar, but said in a different way. So main explanation I'm getting is, we believe in God, and God says this is the right way and that's wrong, therefore what you're doing is wrong and what we're doing is right. And there's no negotiation here. Their exact words are, this is it, we're right, you're wrong. Because I'm sitting here and I'm saying, yeah, I hear you, like, you got your religious beliefs, there's nothing wrong with religious beliefs. But where is your awareness? Because everybody I know has religious beliefs, whether the same or different, and they're still here for me, and they're still supportive, and they still treat me like, at minimum, respect me as a human being, but actually they treat me way better than that, because we're family and we're friends. And they have the awareness that that's okay, and they can associate with people who are different to them and not feel like their beliefs are threatened. And they're going, no, that's not true, people with the same religion as us all feel the same, and there's, what you're saying is not true. And I'm saying, yes, it is. Here's 300 people right in front of you. I can list them all right now. Same culture, same religion, same everything, and they're not abusing someone's human rights. It's like, yeah, well, they're all wrong too, and we're still right. So in these moments, these people genuinely believed, all these hundreds of people in our local community, in the country, in the world, anybody who, whether their religious beliefs were the same as theirs or different, anybody who was supportive or functioning or coexisting with people like me were also wrong. That's what they believed. Because the level of self-imprisonment, mental self-imprisonment was like this 8 of Swords. And I'll explain this card because it sums it up perfectly. Once you had these conversations, you get to this point where I'm like looking at these people and I'm hearing stuff and I'm going, there is no way to get through here. Because these people, notice how there's nobody else in the card here. They're in this state of denial all on their own accord. Nobody put them here. They're choosing to be here. So just in case you can't see, there's a blindfold on, the arms are bound, there's swords all around. It's supposed to look like a prison, like they can't get out of it. But they can. If they just took the blindfold off and these bandages are really loose, they could easily get out, and then they could just walk straight through and be free from these self-imprisoning thoughts. But they're choosing not to. This is like it's an ego thing, it's a stubbornness thing, it's a when you've lived in this for so long and it's all you know, it's very hard to, like someone just walking up on the other side of these swords here and saying, hey, take off your blindfold, this is the real world. Of course they're going to be like, huh, what are you talking about? No, it's not. This is my real world. This is all I know. You know, it's that ego is automatically on the defense. These swords were all put here by, you know, their relatives or their parents and their parents before them, and their generations of limitations. And they do that out of love. See, their feet are in the water here because they love these people. They're taking on their views and living in their same box because they want to be with the people they love. And some of the things that were most frustrating to me in a lot of these moments were how these people are getting away with this behavior and nobody cares. Not like, I mean, yes, a lot of people cared. People who knew me cared because they could see that it was hurting me. But in their lives, nobody cared. Like, I was the first person coming up to them saying, challenging these views. They'd lived well into their late adulthood lives, generations and generations, and they'd kept their family groups so small, their workplaces so small. You know, they hadn't had experiences outside of this that allowed them to understand a greater awareness of just what they knew. If this group was a workplace, you know, was maybe in another city, another country, had different people in their family, had different, maybe traveled for education, or, you know, I don't know, anything like that, even if they were in government, none of this would be allowed. It's illegal to discriminate. But these people were free citizens, operating in their own homes, you know, in their own families, free to instill these, you know, abuses on human rights, and nobody could stop them because it wasn't a workplace, you know, it wasn't in a place where legally anyone had any right to stop this discrimination. So that was something that was so frustrating to me, is that not only did these people that I was talking to choose this, the whole groups and people that they associated with did as well. And then they're carrying it on with their kids and so on. And it's like, if nobody comes in and just takes that first sword out and is like, hey, look at this way, then nothing changes. So, you know, I'm trying to get these, I'm trying to open their awareness to understand what I'm trying to say. And then I'm getting, you know, blocked at each turn. Like, even then they're saying, no, they're not real believers, then they're still wrong. And then they're like, to me, who are you to come here and tell us, you know, to change? Why should we change for you? And I'm like, well, yes, to a point, you're right. Who am I to come and tell you how to change? But also, this is who I am. You know, you did this to me, and I'm now having to come here and explain, like, you need to know how this feels, and you need to know that you can't just recklessly behave like that and it doesn't do anything to the other person. So that's why I'm here. That's who I am. And third of all, whatever I'm up to, I'm not asking you to change. Okay, I'm not asking you to change your religious beliefs. I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm asking you to see a different point of view, to slightly open your awareness from like here to here, just enough to see that maybe you can still have your religious beliefs and still respect my human rights at the same time. That's what I'm asking for. Not a lot, in my opinion. Not a lot. Like, the most minimum level of human decency there is what I'm asking for. You know, and you can change that. You can change your level of awareness. That's something that's within, you know, your power. Me, on the other hand, I can't change who I am. I can't change my personality, my identity, my sexuality, who I am on the inside and now on the outside. And even if I could change that, I wouldn't. Okay, I would still choose to be who I am because I love who I am and there's nothing wrong with it. Whereas you can change your awareness from like this to this. Still nothing. And I'm just getting answers like, just cause I don't need to change, cause this, cause that, cause I don't want to. Now, when I'm experiencing either firsthand or somebody I know is experiencing abuse firsthand, and me or them approaches the abuser and asks for an explanation, and we're at a point where all they can come up with is because I don't want to, or just cause, that whatever psychopathic homicidal tendencies I have inside my, you know, brain were just activated in those moments, because I can't even express the level of rage that I felt then. I'm like in a point now where I'm starting to understand how people get violent and abuse people and commit these crimes out there. I'm starting to go, shit, now I know what they feel like, because I had so much anger and frustration, and I'm like, how do people process these emotions? I've never felt something this extreme, and I'm honestly like, is there a way to process this stuff without getting violent? Like, obviously there is. I didn't do that. I found another way, but I had to hold all that in and feel that for a long time until I worked out a way to get rid of it. Now, I'll get to how I overcame those emotions and how I got help in later videos when we get to the next stages, the hermit and the awareness. But for the sake of getting through the dark night of the soul story, I'm just going to switch from my personal like experience that I was dealing with to my professional one. So I was a nurse for 9 years, so almost a decade, quite a long time of my life, registered nurse. And pretty early on in my nursing career, I learnt that I don't take well to being micromanaged, you know, or dictated to, or just kind of told like, this is how we do it here, you know, do this. You know, you can probably pick up the pattern in personal areas of my life and this one. With that kind of energy, I was like, you know, why would I do it that way? I am someone who needs to know all the reasoning behind something. Just seeing something at face value isn't enough for me. Just doing something because you told me to isn't enough. Naturally, I gravitated towards workplaces and jobs and roles in particular where I could have the autonomy to be the kind of registered professional that I wanted to be, and to, you know, advocate for my patients the way I wanted to. I also, you know, when I was a grad, being like full-time, that all became a bit much, particularly in the area that I was. And so I completely went out on a limb. You know, I was actually just kind of doing it for shits and giggles to start off with. And then it turns out that these people, I applied for this sales job and I was just like, oh, how funny would this be? Next minute they're flying me all over the country and flying down here to interview me, and they're like, you know, come and work for us and join the team. And I was like, oh my God. So I had to resign, and I took on this full-time role in this sales job that specifically they needed a nurse with the experience that I had in the specialty that I worked in. And, I did that for a long time, and again, it was the same kind of thing. Even though I had the space and the autonomy and stuff to grow, I was like, felt like I was missing something without my clinical work. So I kept, chopping, changing the direction of my career and blah, blah, blah. And I eventually found, divided my sales job into part-time and got a clinical job at another hospital part-time. And it just worked beautifully. They complemented each other perfectly. I was very lucky to find this perfect balance, and I loved it. It was perfect. I had everything that I needed. I could express myself the way I wanted to in both of my roles, and it just worked. And I must admit, and I did it at the time, that I had it pretty good professionally. I had it very good, and part of me always knew that it wasn't sustainable. It's literally like that. This is too good to be true kind of thing. I knew it wouldn't be forever. I have many working years ahead of me, but I just enjoyed what I had at the time, and it really worked. But I knew that there was an end date to that. It was like the clock was already almost ticking. At work, I could be who I wanted to be. I could be the nurse I wanted to be. I had all the skills, the knowledge. I'd done postgraduate studies in education as well, so I ended up in kind of more leadership and teaching roles. And I could be everything that I wanted to be at work where I couldn't in some areas of my personal life. Then suddenly, kind of slowly and suddenly at the same time, I know that sounds weird, things at work were changing, and I was losing those spaces and those freedoms to just show up and express myself how I wanted to. And it was getting to the points where I was moving to a more rigid, way of functioning, where it was like, this is how things are now, kind of forget what you were taught, what you learnt, what we've done so far, because that's never going to happen again. This is how it's happening from now on and going forward. And, not every nurse or healthcare worker is going to resonate with my story and what I'm saying here, and that's fine. Okay? But this is my business, this is my life, this is my story, and I'm going to talk about it from my point of view. And having already faced what I had faced in my personal life, and then experiencing the one place where I had the freedom of expression that I wanted, then not having that there either, that was when things really took a toll on me, because that was about as much as I could handle. That was the limit. I was got to this point where I was having to go to work and put a mask on, literally and figuratively, metaphorically, and be someone, who fit into this mold, even though I had a different point of view and I had a different understanding, and I didn't want to be that rigid. I wanted to be able to be more in flow and express myself how I normally would, and I couldn't. And so that was really hard, because I loved what I had. I mentioned that before. It was perfect. I knew there was an end date. I didn't think it would be that soon. But I also couldn't, I literally couldn't handle any more freedoms, rights, anything being taken away from me. I'd maxed out. I was like this 10 of Swords card, that was me. And I remember after a shift, when I was very much in this energy, talking to my doctor on the phone, and I was just like, I don't know what to do. I can't do this, I can't do that. I was like, what's going on? And the state that I was in, and it was 6 p.m. or something. It was well past the hours that my doctor worked, and I'd had her on the phone rambling for 20 minutes, and it just got to the point where she was kind of just like, I actually have to go. And she was like, but you cannot work in the state that you're in. I'm sending you a sick certificate right now. You're not going anywhere except to seek mental health support. But she was like, also, I can't stay on the phone to you, like I have to go home now to my family, but you cannot go to work, and this is the deal. She was like, I'm sending you the time off you need now, but you need to do this for yourself, and you also need to exercise, get out of bed, don't just lay in bed and cry all day and do nothing. She's like, you need to actually do things that are going to help your mental health, but you don't have to. She was like, work, just don't worry about it for now, just worry about your mental health. And so I was like, fine, deal. Even though it's not what I wanted to do, I wanted to keep going, but mentally, like, I couldn't. I needed the break. I was well and truly beyond the burnout phase.